All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever you're watching this, whether it's live or whether it's on replay, my goal is to add actionable advice. And the reason why I thought about titling it that is because I intake a lot of podcasts, a lot of stuff on all kinds of different topics, whether it's real estate, whether it's finance, whether it's entrepreneurship. And I listened to a video the other day from somebody I really love and respect, and I won't name them here, but about 12 minutes in, I thought to myself, like, when is this dude going to talk about something that like give some advice versus just what I learned in my journey when I did this. And I don't know, it felt like talking in circles. So I thought to myself, I don't want to do that. I want to be able to give true actionable advice. The best way for me to do it, in all honesty, is to get questions. If you have a direct question, I had somebody who's seen me either on this channel or on One Rental at a Time fire away a question. Hey, Matt, I'm thinking about refinancing an investment property. I'm pulling cash out. Here's what my current loan looks like. Back and forth, great conversation. Whether you should or shouldn't pay 3 points to buy it down to 6.625, it's going to depend on how long you're going to stay in it. That's actionable advice. Knowing what I know and seeing thousands of mortgages, I can add value to that conversation and give advice. And I think that's helpful for that person. And in this setting where we're live, you ask a question, others might listen and get, great advice from that as well. So before people jump on and ask questions, all-nighter hider, thanks for joining. I appreciate you. Thanks for joining, Kevin Hawthorne. What I want to discuss briefly is things I'm seeing. As somebody who transacts quite a few mortgages, as someone who's intimately involved with real estate offers going out, talking to the buy side, talking to the list side, not just on my deals that I'm doing across the country, but on 500-600 deals a month that you mortgage is doing as a company, I got a pretty good feel for some things that are going on, especially on my stuff, right? And I want to pretend like I know every single nuance of every single deal going on company-wide, but something I've noticed, and I wanted to bring it up here over this last weekend, is we've got a situation that I know we've been in before. It feels familiar, where there's a little bit of a stalemate between seller and buyer. And I'll give you a real life example, right? Seller lists for $800,000. Buyer realizes we're in a market where there's not a lot of buyers. And so they want to go out and they want to find a great deal. They want to offer significantly below that price. Seller's been on the market for 27 days. Obviously, they're not going to get 800. If they were going to get 800, they probably would have already got it, right? And so buyer wants to offer something like 750 with 25,000 in credit. That's going to be net to the seller of 725, 75,000 less than this seller has it listed for. Now, they might settle for less than 800. Whether they'll go all the way to 725 is a whole nother question. And here's my point. I'll get to it because I tend to be long-winded. What these sellers are starting to do, and I'm seeing it and I'm hearing it because I heard it multiple times this weekend, is say, you know what? We're going to come off the market. I'll relist it in March or April when there's more buyers. And I happen to think that there's one, going to be more buyers in the spring, and two, rates will probably be lower in the spring, which will bring even more buyers back. So those sellers might very well be onto something. And if they're not in a position where they have to sell, like they already closed on their place in Florida, Texas, or Tennessee, then they might just press pause, list for $799 in March or April, and get $820 rather than settle for something way below the $800 they're listed at today. There's no guarantee that that happens, but I'm seeing it more and more. And so I guess my actionable advice to a buyer is if you see a relatively good deal right now, fall of 2023, first couple months of 2024, before spring buying season starts. People talk about it being after Super Bowl or after Valentine's Day, sometime mid to late February, early March, the buyers are going to come roaring back. They do every single year in all markets, right? And roaring back might mean something different in Sacramento, California than it does in Palm Beach, Florida, or Memphis, Tennessee. But buyer demand is going to be higher in March than it is today. Every year, every market, end of story. You add to that lower interest rates, that brings more buyer demand. And so what's going to be interesting to see is how many people are waiting till spring to list. Because remember, even a dummy like me understands what affects prices more than just about anything is this supply versus demand balance. If nobody comes to buy, and let's say that rates stay the same or rates go higher for some weird reason, I don't think they will. The economy is headed in a direction where people are suffering more than they are now, and buyer demand is down in the spring, and a bunch of listings come. That forces prices down. That's the only way prices can really fall in real estate, is if we get a lot of supply and there's not enough demand to pick it up. Prices will have to come down to where people want to buy it. So what I'm saying is, if you're a buyer and you're looking for a deal, that window might only be open for another couple months. That's the moral of my story. I truly believe that. All the indicators are there. Spring buying season is going to be a busy one. And so some of these sellers, I don't blame them for pulling off, right? If that buyer really wanted that house and that was the one, maybe they come in at 765 and they secure it and the seller sells it. To think they're just going to give it away at 725, especially a seller that doesn't have to. Seller's like, nah, I'll take the risk that I'm not able to get that or more in March or April. I happen to believe they're probably right. They can probably get that or more in March or April. Probably significantly more when more buyers come back. And if rates come down 0.5%, for sure, they're going to get what they're looking for. So quick shout to Brian Adams. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for the super chat. Truly makes my day that somebody comes on here and fires me a little tip. So thank you, Brian. As you know, man, any way I can help, I'm happy to help. You're in the higher for longer camp, all-nighter hider, which might be true. Like I was looking today, the 10-year treasury is at 439. And what was it today? Today, new home sales, 679,000 versus the forecast of 723. So that was a miss. We've got PCE coming out this week. Rates have been trending down, so much so that the forecast for 2024 is March Fed rate cuts. And, time will tell. I won't pretend like I've got a crystal ball, but I feel like the higher for longer, even if we saw rates start to tick down in Q1 next year and Q2 of next year, we already saw higher for longer than we would have initially thought, right? Like people that were predicting May 10th of 2023 was when rates were going to come down. We've already felt it for longer. Knowing everything is circumstantial, is there an approach you would use looking at commercial real estate? Any considerations that jump out to you? Well, I know much less about commercial real estate than I do about residential. I'll start with that because residential 1 to 4 unit financing, it's what I've done for a decade, all day, every day. That's where my focus is. That's where my clients are. Being around real estate, obviously I'm paying attention and I see what's going on in commercial real estate. I have real estate friends that are in the commercial real estate space, whether it's real estate financing for commercial or whether it's commercial real estate brokers. And for sure, there's pain. If you watch any Graham Stephan, he had Ben Mala, who's a Florida hotel investor who also holds like commercial real estate where Lowe's rents from him, probably on a triple net lease, right? Or Home Depot or somebody like that. And he was saying because of where rates have gone, he's got buildings where it's pretty stable asset when you've got Lowe's, like a nationwide company like that, renting from you, that he's not worried about not being able to rent that space. But if he tried to sell it today, he would have to sell it for millions less than he bought it for because of where cap rates have gone because of interest rate changes. And so there's a lot of people holding commercial real estate that is worth less than it was when they bought it. What I know about commercial real estate debt, it's very, very infrequent that it's any long 30-year fixed rate debt like residential. So after 3 years, 5 years, these things adjust and or get brought back to the drawing table to say, hey, you owe us 1.8 and your rate that had the first 3 years built in at 4% is now 8%. This property now, according to our calculations, is worth $2 million. And we don't want to finance any more than 70% of it. So you need to bring the loan balance down to 1.4. Bring us 400 grand, buy that down to 1.4. And now, even though you owe 400,000 less with the 8% payment, your payment's also going up by 6,000 a month, whatever those numbers, just throwing out random numbers. But that's the kind of stuff that's going on. Well-capitalized investors in commercial can probably weather the storm. Somebody who's got one commercial building, it's their only asset. The scenario I talked about, like not even a big deal, right? It's like a $1.8 million loan. That's not a huge commercial deal. So a mom and pop investor doesn't have $400,000 sitting around. They definitely don't have $400,000 sitting around if that debt being re-amortized with an 8% rate puts them in a position where now that building's losing money. Imagine that. Hey, this building you bought at 4%, where you owed 1.8, the cash flowed $2,000 a month, $4,000 a month. Well, you got to bring us 400 grand and your new payment you're going to be losing $1,000 a month. A lot of people walk away from that. And so that's just a scenario I made up literally on the spot in my head, but I know that kind of stuff is going on all over the country. And so what that means is those are going to be foreclosed on. Those are going to be fire sold. Those are going to be sold at a discount for sure. All across the country. Commercial coming into the office is less common than it was 3 years ago. And so office space is in less demand, and it's got, less investors that are attracted to it because of interest rates. So a lot of conversions. I mean, that's one thing I'll state is that there's going to be conversions from commercial to residential. I'm seeing that all over the place too, where somebody buys a commercial building, converts it into 8 apartment units, and there's plenty of demand for housing. There's plenty of need for housing supply. So it's probably a good thing. All right. That's what I got to say about that. I'm considering when we are ready to buy, we might look at new builds. There seem to be more and more being built in our area. There's pros and cons, like most things, right? Like, I don't see as much of it now, but when builders have to sell and they've got inventory that they want to sell, like, they've got tools at their disposal and tools that could benefit you as a buyer. If I'm locking stuff in the 6s for resale clients, and somebody can go get a deal with the builder where the builder gives them 4.99%, depending on how big that loan is, like, that's a humongous incentive to buy new. In California, there's disincentive to buy new when there's Melrose tax, there's HOAs, there's other stuff that might come along with a new build. One thing that I know a lot of my clients look at is like, they don't want to live in a tract home. They want a backyard. Living in 5,000 square foot lot with 12 feet between their back slider and the back fence, not ideal. But, everybody's got something different that they're looking for. So there's that. Joey Garessi. How about that Kings Thunder game? Have we talked since then? Boy, oh boy, Kings are looking good. See if we can put the smack down on the Warriors tomorrow night. That is what I really want. Even more than beating that great team you got. Pennies on the dollar is what attracts me. Are you talking about the commercial stuff, all-nighter hider? Because I think that for sure, like, people that talk about housing crash or opportunity, like, almost everybody that I listen to that knows more than me sees way more opportunity in commercial than they do in residential. Residential, in my opinion, is going to be relatively flat. I think that rates are going to come down over the next 18 months. And the scenario I talked about where some people are waiting and they're like, I'm not going to sell now, I'm going to sell in the spring. That's going to create some extra supply. That extra supply puts downward pressure on prices. But then we get more demand. The seasonality of spring demand is raising demand. At the same time, more demand comes because of lower interest rates, and that is going to push, that's got upward pressure on prices. So you got downward and upward pressure, and you end up meeting in the middle, and home prices stay relatively flat, which for some people is an L because they're waiting for prices to come down. Quite honestly, if I could give somebody great advice who's waiting for it to be more affordable, you can't have it all. You can't have lower prices, lower interest rates, and be making 20% more at your job. Like, if I hear somebody comment, and here comes rant, so press record. All kinds of stuff out there that talks about affordability and says, in order for homes to be as affordable as they were in 2019, you would need one of three things. You need home prices to come down 40%, or you need interest rates to come down 3.75%, or you need wages to go up 52%. That's crazy. It's not all going to happen. There's no rule written in our Constitution. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I'm just the messenger. Don't shoot me. That says thou must regain same home price affordability as before. Thou art, thou shall. Nothing in there, right? Could interest rates come down, and will they likely come down? Yes. Will home prices come down? Maybe. Maybe we see a correction of 5 to 10%. Not likely more than that. Will you see future increases in your wages? I hope so. Most people are on that trajectory and that path. But will it all in symmetry come together so that the house is as affordable in 2024 as it was in 2019? Probably not. And if I had better news, I'd tell you, but that's just the truth. I mean, I look at it and I see people who are first-time home buyers with 3.5% down FHA that have to take on a $4,000 a month mortgage payment. It's tough. I get it. But to have some dream in your head that buyer at that price point, because it feels more comfortable or it was available in the past, is going to wait, and magically some year home prices, interest rates, and now we got a $3,200 payment on the same home. Probably not going to happen. Might have something to do with $1 bazillion being printed, but that's another story for another day. I'll save it. Who do we got? Matt, what percent below list price are you seeing offers accepted? This is a tough question, Joey, and I'm going to answer this to my best of my ability because, as you know, Oklahoma City, Palm Beach, Florida, Austin, Texas, Idaho, Arizona, California, all different markets. But what I'm seeing is two things. The well-priced homes at the entry-level price points. Entry level is $500,000 in Sacramento. It might be $230,000 in Memphis, Tennessee. It might be a different price in different areas, right? Those entry-level houses still have 3 or 4 people offered on all of them. So they're not selling much below list at all. If they're not perfect or not in the greatest neighborhood or, have some issue with them, they might sit for 2 or 3 weeks. They might get a $10,000 or $15,000 credit. And so they might sell 3 to 5% below list price. The stuff that's selling way below list price is $1.6 million, crap layout, and it's been on the market for 182 days. There was one recently in a neighborhood that I know very well because I've lived there for 43 years, that the agent put an absolute fixer on the market. It quite honestly would sell for $550 or $600 once it's renovated, on the market at $550. And this thing needed $100,000 in work. It was a dump. At $550, I said out loud, they're out of their effing mind. Walked through it, talked to the agent, was nice, didn't tell him he's an idiot. Who knows what went into that list price? Maybe it was all brought on by the sellers. They didn't want to budge. They went down to $525 a few weeks later. And I said, they're still out of their mind. The investors that I work with would not pay anything with a 4 in front of it. It would be $375, $380 for this house because it needed that much work. And if it's going to be worth $575 after it's done, you got to buy it at $375 to put in $100 because you got to have 1, a buffer in case it costs $125, 2, a buffer in case you can only get $550. Like no investor without a huge risk appetite is going to pay more than $375. Long story short, sold for $410. So if you look at that one, Joey, you're like, holy moly, things are selling 25% below list. It was priced incorrectly up front and it needed a ton of work. So not a good example, but most stuff is selling I would say between 3 and 5% below list price. And then there's outliers like the overpriced stuff, the luxury stuff that's going to sell for a bigger discount. Like luxury stuff, you list for 1.8, you sell for 1.6. That's a big $200,000 gap, but still only 10%, 11 point something percent to be exact below list. So that's my answer to that one. I saw a question here. Waiting without cash flow is just procrastination. Like Zuber says, do the work. 100%. I know people doing the work. I know people purchasing deals. There's deals to be had. You just might have to work a little bit harder for it. And like I said earlier, I'm no salesman that's trying to tell somebody they got to buy. What I am telling people is there might be opportunities today and next month that you won't see in March and April. And I say that with a lot of confidence, More buyers in the market in the spring, also fueled by likely lower rates in the spring. That's not the market that you're going to go out and find great deals in. I'm sorry. It's just not the case. Okay. I'm going to answer these questions, but then I want to show you guys. I made this road to 10 properties just to show the power of holding real estate. Like, it is amazing to me what buying and holding properties over time can do to your net worth. So I want to share it. I think the video either is tomorrow or Thursday, whenever the editors get done with it. But I thought it was pretty cool because I work with, physicians, engineers, high earners who, will have a high net worth regardless, whether they put it into a stock account, whether they, as long as they don't blow it and they got to, keeping up with the Joneses problem, they're going to do all right. Simple real estate investing strategies can, one, help them with their taxes, and two, create a ton of net worth for them and future generations, along with what I'll show you is $37,000 a month in cash flow, which ain't too bad. Saw a great video interview last week from Educated Homebuyer Podcast. That's my buddy Jeb Smith. He partnered with, I can't think of that guy's name. Great lender, who's a broker. And yeah, does a really great job. I've been on Jeb's channel before. He's a real estate agent down in Southern California. God, why can't I think of Josh? His lender partner is Josh, whatever his name is, but really great. Check out Educated Homebuyer Podcast if you haven't. I agree. It's really good. Really great info about why right now is the right time to buy and how high the cost of waiting could be. Yeah, I mean, I almost avoid putting out that kind of stuff because people are just going to be like, well, you're in mortgage, you're a salesman, you're you that's what you got to say. The funny part is Javier Vidania down in Arizona can talk about how terrible buying a house is, and he's still going to get people that come to him as real estate agent and say, I want to own a house. It's the time for me to do it right now. So anyhow. Mr. Ryan Lundquist, thanks for joining, brother. The infamous SacramentoAppraisalBlog.com. I pulled that up earlier and I was reading it. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving, Mr. Lundquist. Purchase applications have increased 4 weeks in a row nationally. What are you seeing locally in your book of business or with colleagues? We are surprisingly busy for this time of year. We had a lot of applications, and coming in this Monday, it's like a little bit different because of the holiday, but 3 deals went into contract for my small but mighty team. And we must have had 5 or 6 applications over the weekend. So applications definitely are up, Ryan. And I think that people are realizing, or maybe agents are doing a great job, lenders are doing a great job of communicating that If you were participating in a housing market that was too competitive, times have changed, less competition, better for you as a buyer. If you were looking to move to Folsom and couldn't get in because too much competition, good news. Not only can you get in, but you can get a seller concession with your purchase. If you are an FHA buyer, a VA buyer, any buyer that had any sort of issues with being outbid, being one of 8 and not being able to get something accepted, like things are different. And so if you personally are in a good place to buy, you might want to take a look right now. That's what I'm seeing in my personal business with colleagues is, it's not the perfect time for everybody, and it never is. But if you're thinking about buying now or in 3 to 6 months and you come talk to me, I'm going to give you my opinion that there's not a lot of opportunity right now because of, seasonality and what interest rates have done to demand, which has pulled it back quite a bit, right? And so there's just not as many people out there competing. Makes for a better experience, quite honestly, for buyers. That is what I'm seeing. What? Where are you going to these foreclosure auctions? A $800,000 after repair value and opening bid was $1 million. That's crazy. Where was this property at? I'm curious. SoCal? Wow. All right. Spring and summer, really hard to find deals for sure. I mean, because there's more buyers. It's like anything else. Even public school, Matt Gouget understands more competition equals higher prices and harder to get accepted. We're only waiting because we are not financially ready. We want to be debt free and have our emergency fund and a healthy down payment. Don't really care what interest rates are. And I think that's a great point, Brian. I want to nail that home for anybody who might have misheard or misunderstood. There's no such thing, in my opinion, and I've been doing this for a decade. I've helped thousands of people. There's no such thing as timing the market. The best time to buy a home is when you are in a great position to buy a home. And like you said, Brian, you're going to feel really good about it. It's going to be a celebration. You guys are going to pop champagne. You guys are going to feel proud to walk through the front door, knowing that before you even considered buying a house, you did the things that for you were important. Paid off your debt, set up an emergency fund, and had a good down payment. That might not be the same for everybody. Others might be in a position where we're pregnant with twins. We got $17,000 in student loan debt of his that we still have to pay off. We've got this other thing going, but whatever the case, it's a personal thing. It's not like spring of 2025 is the time. Fall of 2024 is when we're going to get into this neighborhood and we're going to get the very best deal. It's a personal thing. And I even have to remind myself of this because I look at sometimes things through the lens of a math guy and a mortgage nerd. And I say, well, based on the numbers, and then I'm reminded, hold on, like human beings aren't driven by numbers. Human beings are driven by, am I comfortable? Do I feel good? What does this house mean to me in my future? So great point. Here's a great question, Mr. Ryan Lundquist, and I appreciate this one. Are you seeing any extra interest in 2 to 4 units since that 5% down Fannie Mae product launched? What's funny is there was so much hype around this. I mean, I'll admit I was part of it. I was hyped. 5% down, owner occupied, 2 to 4 units. Let's go. Game changer, right? One, there's not a lot of inventory in this 2 to 4 unit asset class. I think that might be part of the problem. But it hasn't really changed much. In the markets where you can go FHA and there's no real issue with that self-sustainability rule that trips people up in California, you probably won't see any difference at all. And I guess it's going to be like most lending products, a great product for those for which it's a great product, right? There's mortgage structures and products where you're like, you know what, for your scenario, this is absolutely perfect. For somebody else, it doesn't make any sense at all. So there's going to be 14 people in 2024 that I put into a 5% down, owner occupied, 2 to 4 unit property, and it's perfect for them. There's going to be another 152 people I talk to that it just doesn't work. Now, FHA is better for you. At a 688 credit score, your mortgage insurance on the 5% down multifamily is going to be triple what it would be on FHA. Doesn't make sense for you. Oh, actually, you know what? For you, whatever the reasons would be, right? Like it's not a big of a box as I might have thought, and maybe some others were thinking about. Caesar U, thanks for the question. Yes, the new 5% down, and I've got a video on my channel. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe to the channel. I put out at least 2 videos on 5% down, conventional, 2 to 4 unit. It must be owner occupied. So if it's a duplex, you live in one side, you rent the other. Triplex, you live in one, you rent 2, but you have to owner occupy it. That's part of it. No pure investment deal with only 5% down. All right, Justin White. Thanks for the comment. I will check out your message on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, holy moly. You talk about inbox problems. I got 46,000 unread emails. I probably have 46,000 unread messages on LinkedIn. I think there's automated software that sends you emails. Recruiters from other mortgage companies that, you know, what's the saying? Couldn't hold a candle to you mortgage, but I guess good on them for trying. They're not really trying though, because they're just sending out a blast to anybody who's a loan originator anywhere. Not a good strategy, folks. Who else? Recruiters, people trying to get you to diversify, sell a little solar, sell a little, financial advising. I don't know, but I'll get to your message there, Justin. I appreciate your support, man. Nice. You're in good shape, Brian. Make 150 grand. Monthly bills are only 2,200 a month. You're in good shape. And picking up a part-time job to add to savings. When you have no debt that you're paying interest on and going the wrong way, and you're making more than you spend and you're plugging money into savings, that can snowball in the right direction pretty fast. Then you add some real estate to that, and you're really cooking with hot grease. Speaking of which, I'm just going to show this real quick because I like it. I'm excited about it. Greatmortgagebroker.com. That's how you connect with me and my team. That's the quick shout. That's a quick commercial. But here is a video I've got. I made this because I work with a lot of high net worth people. You don't have to be the most high net worth individual in the world to utilize this, but I just show it because I've got engineers, physicians that $60,000 down payment on a $220,000 property is something that they could do twice a year. They could buy 2 properties a year. So after 5 years, they could have 10 properties. And what I did is I said 225 was the purchase price in year one, slight increase to 230, slight increase to 235. But over 5 years, they bought 10 properties. They put 25% down. And then based on a 7.5% rate, here's the principal and interest. I know because I talked to somebody who's buying properties at this price point, Memphis, Tennessee. The rents are about $1,900. If I take a 75% factor, meaning I'm going to have turnover, I might pay a property manager, I'm going to have capital expenditures and fixing things that go wrong. So even if I only net 1425, it's still a net positive. Now, quick tip, somebody who's building massive net wealth in real estate over time isn't trying to buy 2 properties that are going to pay them $9,000 a month and retire. That's Instagram BS. I almost said bad words, but I refrained. So they're quite honestly looking to break even or make a small cash flow, $75 a month here, $64 a month here, after all expenses are paid, knowing that total rents are going to increase. I started this right here on year 5 with no rent increases. Then I did this little 2.5% a year rental increase. In most markets, it's going to be more. I was conservative, but that 19.5 in total rents from these 10 properties goes to 19,988. Then it goes to 20,487. You see what 2.5% every year compounding looks like? It looks like 22,000 a month in rents in year 10. It looks like 24,962 in year 15. Now, on the real estate side, in total real estate owned, I did 4% appreciation. Again, conservative estimate. I'm not talking about real estate appreciating 10% per year. 2.35 million. I didn't do anything for the first 5 years. No appreciation at all, just flat. I just started in year 5 because it was easier for me, to be quite honest. 4%, 4%, 4%. Look what happens after 30 years. You've got 6.2 million in real estate. You paid about a third of that for it, by the way, with just 4% appreciation per year. Your tenants covered your rent, and you got a little bit of cash flow. As your rents increased, this $525 a month in cash flow steadily went up to probably, we'll call it 900 here, 1,400 there, 1,700. Like it's going up over time, where even if you take the 75 factor and you're paying property management and you're paying capital expenditures, you're 36,000 in rent. Okay, you only net 27,000 of it. What happens if the mortgages are paid off? Want to take, 10 homes times a few $1,000 a year each in property taxes. Let's call it $4,000. You're still 23,000 or so. Let's put property, let's put homeowners insurance on there too. Let's make sure that we're covered. Like worst case scenario, $20,000 a month for the rest of your life. And we're factoring in property management, paying the bills. And we're factoring in like the tax write-off of the depreciation and any interest and property taxes and all that stuff paid. Like, no wonder people love real estate. No wonder people create massive net worths. In this case, the down payments totaled about 600 grand over a 10-year period. It's about 60,000 a property. So they were in 600. If they held them for those 30 years and let the tenants pay them off, they owned 6.2 million in real estate that kicked off very conservatively $20,000 a month. That's pretty cool. That's generational wealth. That's the power of real estate. Could something go wrong? 1 month you don't get 900 in cash flow, you get 330. Year 14, you replace a roof, 2 roofs, 3 roofs. And it wipes out your cash flow that whole year. 0 in cash flow. Still pretty dang cool. So anyhow, I just wanted to show that because it's fun running those numbers. And the cool part is I see it in real life. It's not just a simulator. It's not some pipe dream. Shit happens. All right. That's all. I appreciate you guys joining. I like going live here. I especially like any and all questions. Joey Garessi, thanks for joining. Brian Adams, I appreciate you, man. I truly do. The super chat, super sweet. Happy Monday to all from you and from me and from everybody. All Nighter Hider, Kevin Hawthorne, anybody else who joined and fired away with your questions. I appreciate you. Next Monday, I do not think I'm going to be on. I'm going to consider doing another day. Wednesdays might be a better day for me. And we'll see. The worst that can happen is nobody shows up. I'll still talk. I'll still record a video. I'm not afraid of nobody showing up. I've had worse things happen to me in my life. You can't get me down. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate you. Until next time, we gonna see.